Hello.
Cool. I'm going to call this meeting to order, seeing that we are all in attendance. Feel like I've established a quorum. We've got the meeting agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to change with the agenda we have? Hearing no suggestions, we'll move on. Any announcements from authority members?
No, I'll save it for a little bit.
Okay.
I have an announcement just to follow up one that I made a year and a half ago, which is that I am no longer with the US Treasury as of the January 20th, but I never encountered any conflicts, so it was never a problem. Every so often something would come up about broadband stuff. I didn't control it in any way, and there was never a problem. Conflict gone.
So you're saying there was no way you could throw us more money?
No, no way whatsoever.
Way to go. Thanks for the update. Anything else? Okay. Public comment. Would you like to say anything? Is there anyone online who might?
There are 3 members of the public.
Very good.
None have raised their hands. If you would like to raise your hand and make public comment, feel free. I am not seeing any hands raised.
Let's move on. The consent agenda. I don't think this represents any substantive changes, does it?
It should. Now that I think about it, I don't remember whether it reflects the payment for body 21 or not. No. Yes, it does. So the biggest change is the expenditure. We have paid Brightspeed for the ABBA portion. We are waiting, as I'll fill you guys in a minute, further reimbursements.
Is motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We will move on. The consent agenda is approved. The December meeting minutes. Bill, you mentioned a couple of minuscule typo changes that you made to those
Minor
minutes.
typos, that was it.
Their motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Old business, body 2021 update, it now being 2025.
And I am confident that by the end of 2026, this one will be off the books. The primary update, the initial closeout report was rejected. For clarification, this is obviously a very old project. The figures, whether it's budget figures or total expenditures, have evolved over the years, and there needed to be some changes to the closeout just to reflect what DHCD was expecting in total expenditures. So we convened all parties, discussed what DHCD wanted to see in that field, and that will be revised and submitted. There is a need to kind of optimize for timing when it comes to the final financial review. So I'm going to wait to submit closeout. We're not in any difficulties with DHCD by delaying, but I'm going to wait to submit closeout again until we are ready to submit our reimbursement request. So that way, the final financial review happens with all of our reimbursement request documentation already intact. So Brightspeed is aware of that, DHCD is aware of that, and I'm waiting for word on just a couple of things from DHCD before I submit both of those.
Do you have a sense of timing for that?
I hope by next week. If not, then I will shake some trees to make it expedited as quickly as possible because we want to move this along. However, I do have to make mention, we did receive a request from a legislator's office to look at an issue with a resident that was not, that is being shown as not included in any project area according to DHCD. On further review, their address is included in the reconciliation that we did almost a year and a half ago for addresses. And Brightspeed has not built to their address. So I will also be meeting with DHCD to discuss what they would like to see happen. I think it's fair to say we would not like this location to have to wait for BEAD.
No, not if it was already included in a project we had.
Correct.
And it begs the question, are there adjacent addresses that also did not get covered?
This is definitely a single spec in a sea of either VADI 21 or VADI 22. And again, during the reconciliation in 2023, I'm sorry, in 2024, we got all of the, no, I'm right, 2023. We got all of the addresses together. We pulled them into a single bucket. We said, these are the addresses that should have been served. They agreed to serve 1,430 of them.
Right.
That should have been included in the 1,430. If they have a different way to add up to 1,430, I'm happy to hear it. But all indications are that this should have been included in the project. So I will have more follow-up at our next meeting.
I have another question about that.
Yep.
Trying to figure out where the disconnect was. Is it that Brightspeed said, yes, we've served this address? Or is it that we said you need to serve all these addresses? And they said, okay, we served all of these addresses and there was a one address difference.
So when the letter of intent was in response to our discovery of what addresses should have been. And we sent them that complete list. And the letter of intent expressed that they had selected out of the 1,466, 46 of them that they did not originally feel should be included.
Mhm.
This address was not among the 46 that they singled out.
Okay,
They added from that 46, 10 more, and that got us to 1,430. So their consideration of this was that at the time was that this address should be included.
right.
However, they never built to that address. We don't have as much insight as we wish that we did.
Okay.
We have a points list that is variously expansive and goes outside of the project area, which makes it very hard to reconcile with actual data, and it's not based on the FCC VSL locations. So I can't even just overlay them and say, make this work.
Right.
The only thing that I can guess is the original plan for this, because obviously predates the VSL by a couple of years, is that they were looking at parcels. And so when they did their analysis, if they had a dot on a parcel, then they counted that parcel as served. And it's possible, and I haven't investigated more deeply, that this particular dot is on a parcel with multiple dots.
Right,
And so they consider it the parcel served because
Right.
an address is served.
sure.
If that's true, getting service there should not be terribly hard.
One would expect. But we will wait to hear more about what their response is. And then, like I said, we will convene with DHCD to see what they want to do. Obviously, if this will cause any further delays, if it merits any further delays, then that will also delay closeout and reimbursement.
Sure.
So we will go from there. But
Very good.
and that's all I have on value.
Anything else on 2021? Let's move ahead.
22, work continues as expected. There were, if you took the time to pull out your old version of this map, you would see some changes. They have optimized the naming of some of the project areas. The perhaps most interesting is this one here. Those first batch underneath REC Standardsville that is connecting now have been drifting. However, Firefly is confident they're going to be able to get these delivered before the end of winter. And they are moving quickly to address all of the spring addresses. The only location that does not have a connection date planned remains Turkey Sack. And if you'll recall, that was originally integrated into the St. John Road project area. St. John Road wasn't going to be served by the Dominion Middle Mile program anymore, so they moved ahead and they were planning on doing something similar with Turkey Sag. Dominion has found a way now to move forward, and so Turkey Sag will once again be part of the Dominion Middle Mile program, but they don't yet know when connections will be made. 2 more slides on this. This one shows the progress that has been made since the last time we updated. This is a lagging indicator. So even where it says that this is the progress as of December, that's when they reported it in December, and it likely represents some past work. But it's a good indicator that all the numbers are moving in the right direction.
That's a lot of miles of underground power replacement in a month. Great.
Yep. And Mr. Wood is available if anybody has any questions for him.
Any questions?
Back on slide 4 real quickly. I just wanted to notice something that came up recently. Firefly continues to work through easement issues as they come up. Amanda Hill of their utilities easement, let's see, for email. It's a United Utilities right-of-way agent. Was in my neighborhood, and she called me up because the neighbors were all complaining that the GIS maps that they were using were not the same as the maps that they had for their properties, and therefore the rights of way weren't going to the places that, and this was something she was going to follow up with me about, but she hasn't. But it was clear that it was a problem between the county's maps and the property owners' own sense of where their property boundaries were.
Right.
Is that what this is about? For the most part, or?
It's related, but it's specifically due to residents on private roads in particular that do not want to offer easements on their property where a general utility easement does not exist. So residents that don't want to offer an easement present a challenge if there are several locations downstream that want to receive service. And there are 2 communities in Albemarle that are particularly impacted by this. They are finding ways to navigate where it's feasible, and where it's not feasible, there is an end date coming where they're not going to be able to continue the project in that area if they cannot get easements for the individuals downstream of the reticent residents.
Well, then what I was hearing about is a different take. It's really about, I don't think it's about private road, because it's a public road that I'm talking about, but
It's not a very
that the boundaries are not what they thought they were, and so they're not really getting the signatures for boundaries. I think I'll have more detail for you soon.
Yeah, and you know, I'm happy to help out as much as I can on those. I will point out Ms. Bowden, council that's present, is involved in one of those areas that is kind of navigating this space, and has been an asset in terms of helping us kind of conceptualize what sorts of solutions can be found in these sorts of situations. So Firefly remains committed to serving those locations where they can. They also remain committed to searching for solutions where they can.
And following the law, so,
Right.
you know, always good.
And it certainly, I'll say this, it is far better for them to find themselves in the situation of not being able to serve some customers because they follow the law, rather than just showing up and trenching through people's homes.
Yes. Also, I wish people wouldn't be like that. Go ahead and bury fiber in my land. What do I care? It's frustrating. They have every right, but as I often tell my children, like, you have the right to withhold that toy from your brother, but my God, you haven't played with it in 3 years. Just let him play with it. Like, it feels simple.
I think you nailed it. Anything else on body 2022? All right. Let's move on.
I'm sorry, one more update on body 22, and that's that at the January Board of Supervisors meeting, the Yancey lease was agreed to. And so the agreement is now with Fez and Firefly for implementation. So we're going to focus very briefly on the impact of the recent executive orders on digital inclusion programming, and that's inclusive of BEAD. And that's it for the BAO reports. That way we can move on to the BEAD letters of support. DHCD has expressed that they are going to continue all of their applications that are currently in progress, and that includes the Digital Equity Act program that they're referring to as DSLD, as well as their BEAD program. That is how we're going to be treating it, as business as usual in terms of these potential applications. The executive orders, however, do freeze these programs. Until further guidance and action is provided by the administration, that isn't going to change. There is an NTIA administrator. NTIA is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, and they oversee both of these programs. The NTIA administrator has been nominated, and we expect no further action until that nominee has been installed. But as I said, the HCD is going to press on with the application process. So for the BEAD applications, the applications are due on March 1st. And for the DSLD programs, they're in April.
Like they're working on being ready to go when the path is cleared.
And part of their argument is that they're a long way from actually needing access to the funds. And so continuing with the application process and queuing everything, even going into contract negotiations, makes sense if you don't need the funding for a while. In terms of what we're actually doing right now, there's no immediate impact on any ongoing broadband expansion programs. There's no immediate impact on any of our digital inclusion programming, and that includes our navigators and our Albemarle County Bridge broadband supplement. It does, however, introduce uncertainty to our planning process. We have a planning grant in place. We're going to be working with our partners very closely to plan for the future. And it's much harder when we don't actually have any way of pointing to when funds will be available. And it may impact the focus and messaging around these efforts. The administration has expressed a desire to change certain aspects of these programs, and that includes what they want to focus on. So we can expect that our programming will shift to try to meet administration goals while not diverting from mission.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question on this? So I brought this same question up at the TJPDC as our pass-through for a lot of this, and my sense of the answer I got is that any federal monies that are used in body 2022 are no longer sitting with the feds,
correct,
and therefore are not in jeopardy,
correct,
provided we spend them this year.
Yes.
Is that correct?
As long as we can move those dollars, then those dollars are safe. It is, I'm not going to speculate to any action that Congress might try to take, but the faster that we spend that money, the better. And to that point, Firefly is doing its best to accelerate where they can, and that includes in our ARPA funded grant here in the county, and they're planning on submitting an invoice for that as soon as they can, so that way we can make sure that those funds have been moved. But I think the other thing that's fair to point out is those funds and those programs don't carry the conflict with the administration priorities that the subsequent programs did. Anything else?
Other question? Let us move on then.
All right.
Letters of support.
As I noted, the executive orders may have a material impact on the BEAD program, particularly uncertainty around the timeline and the program criteria. DHCD, ahead of our deadline for submitting requests for letters of support, did revise its eligible locations list in Albemarle to 572. I believe A lot of those changes reflect the enforceable commitments that Firefly had in place that were not reflected in the earlier eligibility list. That certainly is closer to our figure, but still off by a little bit. And I bring that up just to say we set two priorities. The first priority was to get the job done by the end of 2026. And the second priority was to have any applications reflect the eligibility data that we had. DHCD also introduced a de-obligation process where once awarded, an awardee can then go back to DHCD and say, well, actually, we know for certain that these addresses are served by someone else. These addresses are part of an enforceable commitment. And so we're gonna de-obligate these locations, and the contract will be just for the actually eligible locations.
And to clarify, or to make sure I understand properly, the de-obligation is only for those cases, not, and we don't want to serve these guys
Correct.
now.
Correct. So the criteria for the applications gives bonus points if you're going to cover all of the available eligible points in a ZCTA and a zip code, basically. And once awarded the points within a ZCTA, you're obligated to serve those unless you can demonstrate that they are already served by someone else or under an enforceable commitment or are not a buildable location. And among those 572, if I were to venture, having spent an awful lot of time with these dots, there are probably about 24 locations that don't exist. And so we will likely see some of those as well.
Not, it's inconvenient, it can't be done. Okay.
Yep, it is a tree. We received 2 requests for BEAD letters of support, one from Comcast Xfinity and one from Amazon Cooper. I don't necessarily know that I know how to pronounce that. Neither of them had a specific commitment to utilize our eligibility data, nor our commitment for service by the end of 2026. The Comcast Xfinity is an incumbent provider in the county. They serve customers both in the development area and in the rural areas. They've been a body partner in the past, and they have worked with BAO to identify served areas listed as unserved by DHCD. And they've also been a partner in our affordability programming for that reason. And we've obviously, I will stop talking in a moment and let the authority discuss. Staff recommends awarding Comcast Xfinity a BEAD letter of support based on their capacity to deliver in all eligible locations. Amazon Cooper is a proposed low Earth orbit satellite internet service provider that has plans for broad service availability and a commitment to meeting BEAD guidance. In particular, BEAD guidance here is referring to the requirement that speeds be at a minimum 100 megabits per second down and 20 megabits per second up, and to meet the affordability requirements of each state. And in the state of Virginia, that means not costing more than $75 per month. Given the lack of service history, the limited history of their efforts, staff makes no recommendation on that particular request.
Just a question. You said that they make no commitment to utilize our eligibility data. Help me understand what impact that could have.
It could mean nothing because both DHCD and each of these providers has our eligibility data. DHCD is requiring them to submit if they want the extra points. They have to submit for all of the points that DHCD has listed. Even if they know that several of them are going to be de-obligated later, they have to submit for all of them. So to a certain extent, DHCD's de-obligation process and the scoring nullifies that priority. So it's possible that later, the same points that we believe are eligible will be the ones that are contracted for.
I'd like to put a stake in the ground and say, I think it's totally reasonable for us to endorse Comcast. Is endorse the right word to use here?
Support.
Support Thank you. Comcast expansion, as they already are on the edge of that, that makes sense. I think it makes no sense whatsoever to support Kuiper's application as they have 0 satellites that exist. There's no past performance.
But they're hoping to launch some really soon.
And Bucky, I think it was you who'd said at our last meeting, maybe, who'd reminded us that past performance is an awfully important thing to base this on. I'm not thrilled with Comcast's reputation, but they exist. My bar is, do they exist? Amazon Kuiper does not exist. I am not prepared to support them. I am prepared to support Comcast. So there's my
It's truly a case where their competition has the high ground. Starlink is up there. They are not.
Yeah.
And Amazon's got enormous cash flow. They may get a couple thousand satellites up to do this because they can simply fund them. But it could well be years before they have a reasonable service offering to provide. Whereas Comcast, as soon as they want to start stringing wires on poles, they can start providing service. So
I'll add to that what SpaceX discovered with their can never think of the name of their satellite. Starlink, thank you. Never come up with that. I wanted to involve the word space in some way, and it doesn't. With Starlink, they discovered that when you get the initial satellites up, you can offer really spotty coverage in some places, but it takes a critical mass of satellites to be able to offer any reasonable quality of service. So it's not even like, oh, they might launch them in March. Yeah, I guess they might, but that's just a tiny, tiny number of satellites that they need for their constellation. What makes me nervous is that we could wind up with 100 odd people, however many, just unserved because of the hypothetical service that Amazon says that they're going to offer somewhere down the line with Kuiper. I like it.
Is your sense that our negotiating posture insofar as such a thing exists here is sufficient to allow us to ask if Comcast would be willing to firmly commit to a service timeline? Because you mentioned that was a criteria that we laid out as something we want to see, and they both blew right past that. Amazon, I get it, that they probably blew past that because it doesn't fit with what they're already planning, but
Right.
Comcast is just being coy. Could we not say, hey, we've received 2 competing, not strictly competing, but we've received 2 applications before we decide on either of them. You haven't weighed in on your ability to meet our timeline.
I think I will point out a representative from Comcast is available if the authority would like to hear from them. I think the uncertainty is the peril. If we don't know when the money is actually going to be available, then we don't know when a contract could even be established, and we don't know when construction could actually reasonably start. I think if we were if the BEAD program was not presently frozen, then it would be a lot easier to just to say what you're saying and just kind of say, well, we're willing to hold our hands and we've got time before March 1st until Comcast comes back to say some commitment on timeline. I certainly think it is appropriate to ask for a commitment that our area be served as early as possible. And I bring that up again because we have made a commitment to achieve universal access as quickly as we humanly can. And with just 327 eligible locations, if they are looking at the panoply of the state of Virginia and they're seeing tens of thousands in this county, tens of thousands in that region, Firefly has mopped up through Body 24 almost all of the remaining dots in the outlying counties, then these 327 could wait until 2031, because that's when they're going to be done with all the big projects, and so now they can move their crews to the smaller projects. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So there's certainly, we will, regardless of how BEAD goes, the office is going to be working to try to find solutions for all 327 of these locations as soon as possible. But I certainly think it's worth considering the possibility of asking Comcast for more of a commitment on timeline.
Since our participation in BEAD is materially different from how we've done things before, really all we get to do is the opportunity through these letters to add a few points to someone's application. and the decision on that application is out of our control. We can decide who we want to give the points to. I'm right with Waldo in terms of Kuiper, interesting idea, love to see competition, no idea if it's going to come to fruit. Not sure I want to waste my points on them. Comcast here on the ground, asking for support. It seems to me in the best interest of our folks in the county who don't have coverage to give these folks a try.
Not important, but do we know where Amazon's number of BEAD eligible addresses came from? They say 1,300 something. I'm like, what is that?
I don't know. It is not a number that I saw previously.
But there used to be some federal maps and federal numbers that were just wildly out of touch with reality. It could have been from one of those data sources.
The first version of the federal map showed some 3,700 locations in Albemarle County that were unserved, and that was woefully inaccurate, but we are confident in our 327.
Any other comments on this topic? The chair would like a motion to do something or nothing.
I'd like to move, if we can do it in a single vote. If we can't, we'll hold two separate votes. I'd like to move that we support the Comcast proposal and that we do not support the Kuiper proposal.
I'll second that. Any further discussion?
Just this is not a not support, but it's just a no support, no.
Right, not
no-
taking up the
opposed.
opportunity.
Yes, just, it's a good.
We're not opposing, we're just. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay? Hearing none, we will support the Comcast application. Thanks very much, Jason.
I will draw up a letter of support and distribute it to council, yourself, and authority with haste.
What's the deadline on that?
We did not offer a deadline.
No, but do they have a
They have to
deadline?
have it in, submit their applications by March 1st.
It'll be out for about a week, starting next Thursday.
Yep.
Any other matters before the authority?
Jim, didn't you say at the outset that there was something you'd want to talk about later?
No, I said it. It was in connection with 2022 and the
Yes,
fact
yes.
that there were all sorts of easement issues. And I've actually since forwarded you an email identifying specifically where the properties are.
Perfect.
Well, then I'd like to move to adjourn.
No.
Second, hearing no opposition, we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Richie always makes us stay here till 6 o'clock.